on the corner watching everybody go by to go onto the event. And Harry Truman was a speaker at the Truman dinner that year. And the sort of the David Broder of the Scranton Times was a guy named Tommy Phillips, who was a elderly man, younger than me, but elderly man, who was the chief political reporter. And they got a picture, and I hadn't thought about it in a long time, but I'll send it over to
The program sets restrictions on both net and gross monthly income broken down to household size. But the barrier to acquiring food aid in Michigan has been lowered. It is a Governor Gwich'in Whitmer, signed a bipartisan bill removing the asset test as a requirement to receive SNAP benefits. And according to the Michigan Executive Office of the Governor, the move will offer greater financial security to those who need it the most and ease the burden of receiving aid. Michigan is now one of the 37 states with similar laws, and the governor says people who had more than $15,000 worth of assets, including vehicles and savings, were disqualified for food assistance. Officials say that 500,000 children in Michigan will benefit from the eliminated asset, and now in Maine, all recipients of the SNAP program will have their monthly benefits delivered to them by today. SNAP benefits are distributed to eligible residents from the 10th to the 14th of every month, with all beneficiaries scheduled to have their benefits by the month of July by Friday. Now, the next round of SNAP payments will also begin on August 10th. The state of Texas will complete issuing SNAP benefits worth up to $1,700 for a month of July this week. Texas has a long window for issuing payments, lasting through the first 10 days of the month. Even the amount received depends on one family size. A single household will receive $281, and an 8-member household will receive $1,700. But on a federal level, some House representatives want to expand the number of food stamp recipients subject to work requirements and time-limited food benefits. By raising the age of people, members are writing the bill against the backdrop of extraordinary uncertainty in the economy and inflation, including the cost of food is so high that the Federal Reserve is willing to risk a recession to slow the prices down. Economic disruptions are caused by the crisis, and the robust labor market is expected to weaken in the months ahead. The past week, Democrats of the Department of Education announced that it will begin discharging student loan debts for borrowers who've been in repayment for 20 to 25 years under a one-time payment. Around 800,000 borrowers will benefit from this, and there will be $39 billion dropped. Joe Biden said the previous announcement is a one-time adjustment and will become an even more important lifeline for struggling borrowers than repayments start in September. The one-time payment adjustment the Education Department had counts certain months that were previously ineligible towards student loan forgiveness. But now, everybody, the Education Department announced a one-time payment adjustment for all direct loans and federally owned family education loans. Now, the adjustment to student loan accounts will go toward helping borrowers get closer to forgiveness under the income-driven plans. And after this adjustment, people should be getting stimulus payments because the one-time payment adjustment helps to reverse some of the damage caused by loan services that did not properly track deferments or steer borrowers to forbearance, instead of income-driven toward repayment payments, which would have continued toward years of payments. Some borrowers in the public service loan forgiveness program have already seen the payment adjustments in their accounts. So we know that's a good.
To West Virginia, then basically I always have said, okay, put your team together. Their will and pleasure. If they screw up and they're bad, you're going to be held accountable, and in 4 years the people can atone that. So I've been very differential. I'm going to look at each one of them. There might be some that I don't agree with. I will be able to let the Biden administration know how I feel, but we haven't done the personal interviews yet before we confirm. I look forward to that.
Senator Manchin, thank you. Thanks for joining us, and good luck this week in coming.
First of all, the Government Accountability Office reported that at least $4 billion in jobless benefits frauds has been formally determined by the state unemployment services, while at least $45 billion in payments have been flagged for potential fraud by the U.S. Department of Labor. This cannot be interpreted as the extent of the problem, though. The report provides the latest insight into numerous schemes to steal money from a range of ideas of hastily implemented crisis relief programs. Things are hastily implemented? No. It comes a week before newly powered House Republicans are making their investigation into this effort. The House Oversight Committee also said that it's possible this could happen. The committee, chaired by Representatives James Comer, sent letters to the Department of Labor and its Inspector General's office, as well as state labor departments in California, New York, and Pennsylvania. He said, "We owe it to Americans to identify how thousands of billions of dollars is going under the guise of crisis relief. They were lost waste, money, fraud, mismanagement, a lot of things that are going crazy. I also want to say this, folks, a key component of the relief effort was a federal weekly supplement for out-of-work Americans. If you're out of work, don't worry, we got stimulus just for you, because a total of $900 billion in crisis unemployment benefits were paid from April through September 2022. It's a lot of money just for you guys. Now, what I'm saying, folks, is that the department across the country shutting down either for regular maintenance or following accidents. Now, a number of West Coast refineries that had been offline have returned to operations, and that has sparked a plunge in gas prices west of the Rocky Mountains, driving down the national average. And just last week, the average price in California has fallen 30 cents a gallon, and there's been a 25-cent drop in Oregon and a 20-cent dip in Washington and Nevada. All the refineries dealing with accident repairs won't be back online anytime soon. Those that have been closed for reschedule and maintenance are now near to resuming operations. According to the experts, that will likely lead to lower prices elsewhere in the nation. And even if the drop isn't as precipitous as it has been out west, oil and gas futures fell in Tuesday's trading after word got out that President Biden announced 15 million barrels of oil will be released. And that represented just another phase of the planned release of 180 million barrels of gas over 6 months being released in late March. Oil analysts have also said the markets initially moved due to confusion over whether or not the oil was coming out of strategic reserves. So millions of inflation relief checks actually started going out to taxpayers in California. So the middle class tax refund, as it's called, can be as much as $1,000 depending on your income, residency and filing status, and household status as well. It's part of a $12 billion relief effort that Governor Gavin Newsom prioritizes getting dollars back into the pockets of Californians that are grappling with inflation. So I know many of you guys are wondering whether you qualify for this check. Well, currently about 23 million residents are eligible for the rebate plan, which has been up and set up in 3 tiers based on just the gross income of your 2020 tax term. In addition to their income requirements, residents must have filed their 2020 tax return and refund by the middle of October and have lived in the state of California for at least half of the 2020 year. Individual filers earn more than $250,000, and couples who made more than $500,000 are not eligible for a payment. But here's more news about this. With rent, food prices, and utility bills going up, families could use some extra cash. Inflation is stressing people's budgets big time, and according to the Washington Post, if you're struggling and didn't file a tax return this year, definitely be sure to check. Last week, the IRS started sending letters to the 9 million households who may be eligible for several lucrative tax benefits, including the third round of checks worth as much as $1,400. If you didn't get the full payment or amount of the crisis check under the American Rescue Plan, you can still claim the credit and actually get it paid to you. The IRS faces a daunting task amid the crisis to reach millions of people who don't typically file tax returns but could get the stimulus